This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Turning Legos into art. The brick artist, Nathan Sawaya, on this edition of Conversations. Nathan Sawaya is a former New York City lawyer who has turned Legos into a popular art form. Yes, those Legos, the same ones you may have played with as a child. Sawaya uses the plastic bricks to create some most imaginative sculptures. Nathan Sawaya's The Art of the Brick exhibition has been showcased around the world. A few years ago, CNN named it one of the 10 must-see exhibitions. His creations are a hit with both children and adults. Sawaya's passion for art goes beyond his own desires. Through his recently formed Art Revolution Foundation, he has started an energetic campaign to reinvigorate art into schools and communities around the nation. We welcome Nathan Sawaya to this edition of Conversations. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you, where did it all begin? Where did your journey as an artist begin?
Well, I suppose it started when I got that first set of Lego bricks when I was 5 years old. I just started building immediately. I just knew this was something I wanted to do. In fact, I had very accommodating parents. They let me have a 36 square foot Lego city in our living room.
Okay.
So behind the couch, kind of hidden, but yet still made for a good conversation piece.
Right.
And that was my respite. That was where I would go after school and create.
Now, did you do other types of art as well?
Yeah, I had a lot of opportunities. My parents were always encouraging creativity, so there was a lot of, Play-Doh to sculpt with or crayons to draw with. There was always that creativity that was always being, encouraged.
Were your parents artists?
My mother's an amateur artist. My father's a civil engineer.
Okay.
And so when people see my artwork today, there's a bit of engineering there. So there's probably something genetic going on there.
Okay. Now, when you were a child, were you creating anything like you're doing today with Legos, or were you just building cars and houses?
Well, it's funny. I got these Lego sets, and I would build what was on the front of the box. And it was actually, I was about 10 years old, and I wanted to get a dog. And my parents said, well, you're not getting a dog. So what did I do? I tore down that Lego city and I built myself a life-size Lego dog. And it was kind of that moment that I realized, you don't have to build what's on the front of the box. You can use this toy to make whatever you can imagine. Right. If I wanted to be an astronaut, build myself a rocket ship. If I want to pretend to be a rock star, I'll build myself a guitar. There's no limits.
Wow, interesting. Now, do you still have some of the things that you did when you were a child made
a
out of Legos?
lot of it, a lot of the stuff I built as a kid got torn down. That dog is long gone.
Because it'd probably be worth something now.
Maybe, yeah.
Interesting. Well, now tell me, you were actually an attorney for a while, so I'm
Sure, yeah.
Now, how did that all come
What
about?
does a young budding artist do after college? They go to law school. There were some societal pressures, maybe some parental pressures, where I thought, after college, although I had interest in being an artist, I really didn't have faith in my art as a viable career. So I did end up going to law school and practice corporate law in New York City, doing M&A and securities law, which is very different from being an artist.
Right.
But I would still have this creative urge. So after a long day at the law firm, I would need some sort of release, some sort of creative release. Some people go to the gym at the end of the day. For me, it was drawing, it was painting, and sometimes sculpting.
Okay. And when did you kind of rediscover Legos as an adult?
Well, it was during that period when I was still working as a lawyer, but I thought, well, what about this toy from my childhood? And I just challenged myself one weekend. Could I do a large-scale sculpture just using Lego bricks? And that weekend turned into like 2 months. But 2 months later, I had a sculpture, and I was like, oh, there's something here. And I showed it to friends and family, and they were like, you should do more of this. Eventually, I put together a virtual gallery. I put a website together where people could check out what I was doing. Right. And that actually led to commissions.
Okay.
That's a big deal. Like, people were going to pay me to create art out of this toy. And it was a real aha moment, I suppose. And eventually, I got to that point where I was working full days in the law firm, coming home at night and working on 6-8 hours in the evening on these creations for people all over the world and getting paid to do that. It was when my website crashed from too many hits. I thought, all right, it's time to make a change. And I decided to quit the law firm and become a full-time artist.
Wow. What was the Lego company's response once word sort of got out that you were doing this?
You know, Lego was, I think, a little worried at first. They didn't know what to expect. Here's someone using their product in a very different way. This was not just about making toys. This is about making all sorts of things, maybe giant skulls, you know. It was something that started off, they were very, I think, a little nervous. But we quickly got into a conversation, and it was that communication that really led to a great business relationship at this point.
Okay, very good. Now, tell me about some of the commissions. Now, as I was doing a little research on you, you had some celebrities you did some commissions for, right?
You know, it's interesting. I create this artwork that's made out of a very unique medium, Lego bricks, and so I do get commissions from people who, like, what do you get the person who has everything, right? What about art out of Lego? And so I get some weird commissions, some interesting commissions. I've had people... Tony Hawk has commissioned some stuff.
He's the famous skateboard guy.
He's a skateboarder, exactly. Lady Gaga has commissioned work from me. I've even built something for President Clinton.
Okay.
So over the years, just random people have contacted me, and I've got to create art.
Now, there's the Lady Gaga. Is it Lego Gaga?
Yeah, we'll call it Lego Gaga, exactly.
Now, how did this come about? And tell me the story.
This was an interesting collaboration. She had seen my artwork, and she was working on a new music video, and she wanted to really reach out to kids and make it known that art is accessible. So she came by my art studio in North Hollywood, and we just started talking about what we could do, how we could work together. And we came up with a bunch of different concepts and really narrowed it down to taking this sculpture of this yellow figure, tearing its chest open with yellow bricks spilling out all over, which is one of my sculptures that's become a bit iconic. Right. And she wanted to put her own head on it. And we would use that for the music video. So it was an interesting conversation over several weeks, and we actually shot that at Hearst Castle, which was really fun. Because no one had been able to shoot in Hearst Castle for over 30 years. So we brought the sculpture up there and worked on making this music video happen. And so for a portion of the video, my art makes an appearance, I guess.
What's the music video?
It's called GUY.
Okay. And I'm assuming it's been released already?
It has been released. Okay. It's off of her Art Pop album, and it was a lot of fun. It was interesting to work with someone, you know, who's so into arts and collaborate with them, but on a very different type of project.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm showing my age, not knowing her music.
It's all good.
Speaking of yellow, though, let's talk about that particular piece and tell me how it came about.
Well, yellow was a sculpture that just kind of came to me actually when I was a lawyer, and I doodled it out at a certain point. And it took a few years before I actually started building with the actual bricks. So I had this concept in the back of my head about kind of opening oneself up to the world. You know, when you've given it all you have left is what's inside you. You're tearing yourself out, and just your soul is spilling out. So I created this piece, and I think it really resonates with a lot of folks. For a variety of reasons. I think adults can kind of connect to it because of the messaging there about tearing oneself open or you know, letting oneself out. I think kids really like it because there's guts spilling out of it, you know? And those guts are this toy, this Lego brick toy. So it's become a bit iconic. I've seen it on book covers, album covers. People use it for their logos. A major fashion label used it on the back of one of their jackets, which is interesting because you recall I was a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah. and when you see these things, it's very exciting because as an artist, oh my gosh, my art is getting out there. That's amazing. But as a lawyer, you're like, that's being done without my permission. Fortunately, since I was a lawyer, some letters were written. It's all worked out very nicely.
So there is an advantage to the law school.
There is an advantage, exactly.
Absolutely. Tell me about your process. How do you get your ideas?
Sure. Well, where does one get their ideas? That's the tough question because ideas come from so many different places. Fortunately, I have multiple art exhibitions, which means I get to travel a lot. I get to go all over the world and meet different people, experience different cultures, and I use that. I feed off of that. Carry a little sketch pad with me wherever I go, jot down ideas. I've been known to be, you know, jotting ideas down on napkins where, you know, at a restaurant, wherever I'm at. And those ideas are what you know, they're the germs that really that germinate the idea, the process. It's interesting because I feed off of where I've been, where I'm going, and then just personal emotions. If I have a thought or a feeling that I want to express, I try and do it through Lego bricks.
When you as an artist, you as a creative person, when you look at an object, what do you see that maybe I don't, or maybe someone less creative doesn't?
You know, at this point, I think I see the whole world in rectangles, right? Because I'm so used to seeing everything in little Lego bricks. But, you know, it depends on, it's not actually even seeing an object. It's having a thought or a feeling, and then how do I translate that into an object, or an emotion, or into a sculpture? I think one of the reasons my art really resonates with folks is because they're so familiar with it as a toy, this Lego toy. We've all played with it. They can connect with it. But what I've tried to do is take it and put some emotion into it, create these sculptures that have a little message there, that have something to make you think about it, which is different than just playing with little cars and trucks built out of Lego.
Right. What I want to do is I want to have the folks in the control room put up a couple of your sculptures, and I want you to sort of tell me about them. Now, what we're seeing some video right here, just briefly tell us what this is.
Well, that figure there who's kind of grasping its head, or these skulls here, I mean, these are all different concepts that I've had over the years that have different meanings behind them. Like these skulls, for example, were about, you know, just taking this toy, but let's kind of juxtapose it with the idea of all these bright colors. There was another piece there where there's this red figure being pulled away from a wall. He's pulling from this wall, and all these arms are grasping at him. I call the figure Grasp, but it's really about my journey from being a lawyer and all these people telling me I was making a mistake. I was going from this 6-figure salary, very secure job. I was leaving all that behind to become an artist who plays with toys. Are you crazy? And it was tough because I'm making this transition, and yet a lot of people thought I was making a mistake, though I thought I was following my passion. And when you're making a transition like that, you do find who your real friends are sometimes, because some are very negative, and you kind of have to cut that out if you're really going to pursue it.
What did you do to keep yourself motivated?
Well, you know, fortunately, every project I thought was going to be the last project. Like, oh, this is probably the last thing, and I'm going to have to go back and being a lawyer. So one of the things I did was let my legal license expire, which a lot of people are shocked. Like, you don't have that? But I didn't want that safety net. I didn't want that ability to fall back on being a lawyer. So I let that license expire, and that does motivate one, you know. And after that, it was just, you know, pursuing my creative pursuits. I was having fun. I still am having fun. I get to create every day, just use my imagination. And so it doesn't take much to motivate me.
What kind of response did you get from art galleries as you went around and said, hey, I have this new medium?
That's a great question. Yeah, that was tough. When I started off, I think a lot of art galleries and museums were kind of confused. Kind of, you make art out of Lego? What is that going to look like? And so they were pretty nervous about taking a chance on me. I had a lot of doors slammed in my face. So it took a while. When I had my first solo exhibition in 2007, and I actually thought that would be my last solo exhibition. The museum in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the Lancaster Museum of Art, annually gets about 35,000 people. For my 6-week show, they got 25,000 people. And we all kind of realized, wow, there's something to this. And I think it goes back to the fact that people can connect with the art on a different level. If someone goes and sees a marble statue, they can appreciate that marble statue. Most people don't have marble at their home they can start chipping away at.
Right.
People have Lego bricks, or their kids have Lego bricks.
Right.
And I still hear from families to this day. They go and they see my exhibition, and they write to me, hey, we saw your exhibition, the kids came home, they immediately started building with Lego bricks. We haven't heard from them in 3 days. Thank you. And there's something to that. It's about inspiring. It's about reminding folks that, you know, you can be an artist too. Take a little time out of your day and do a little drawing.
Yeah, interesting. And I want to talk to you more about that, because I know that's kind of your mission as far as giving back, and we'll get to that in a moment. But before we do, tell me about Hugman.
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 Yeah. Well, Hugman's my form of street art. You know, I'm based in New York City, Here's Hugman actually in Singapore. Hugman's been all over the world. And Hugman's my form of leaving something behind. So I put these little figures out in different parts of the city, and they hug things from signposts to trees. This one you see here is actually an oversized Hugman. That one is a life-size Hugman. A lot of them are just 15 inches tall. But then I did have an opportunity to do a whole installation at a city park. So I did life-size Hugman hugging trees. But it's just my form of graffiti, if you will.
Okay.
What kind of graffiti can you do out of Lego? So I came up with this little guy that hugs things.
Okay. And so you just put him around New York City?
Yeah, I leave him around. I leave him everywhere I go.
Okay.
In fact, there's one at the Pensacola Museum of Art.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, neat,
Yeah.
neat. And do you ever just sit down and have a cup of coffee and watch people to see what happens?
I do. I think that's one of the more fun things to do. I'll put one out where I can see it from, say, a coffee shop, and then I'll sit with a friend of mine. We'll just watch what happens. And people stop, they take pictures. I mean, they're there to put smiles on people's faces.
Right.
But every once in a while, I mean, it's New York City.
Right.
So after about an hour, it kind of usually disappears. I've seen it happen. I've been sitting there and watched someone just walk by and kind of snap it up and go.
What's your typical day like? When you wake up and go to the studio, what's it like?
You know, it starts with email, actually. I check my email to see what's going on. And I think it's interesting, but it's one of the more favorite parts of my job because I always receive all these random requests from people with ideas, or it's just so much fun. There's so much creativity out there. Yeah. And people are always asking me to build something nuts or build something crazy. It's just fun to look at these requests that come in. And then it's, once I get through that, answer some email, it's really, I hit the studio, and it's a full day of building. A lot of snapping bricks together.
Okay. Now, do you glue those bricks?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I learned the hard way that I need to glue all of my sculptures together.
Okay.
Museums kind of get grumpy when they open up a crate and there's just a bunch of loose bricks, a little sign that says some assembly required. Right. Yeah. So I glue everything one brick at a time.
And I assume, well, and here you are in action.
Yeah,
I like
there you
this.
go.
Now, this is some time-lapse video.
Yeah.
Tell us about this.
No, this is actual time. This is my speed when I'm working. Yeah, so this is a piece I'm working on. This is one that's at the museum here, and this is a piece that took a few days to put together. It's a figure holding a large pencil, and as you can see, it's just done brick by brick. I'm actually gluing each brick into place. So it's a process. You do need patience for this job. I mean, that was time-lapse, but these take several days. Some of the larger things have taken weeks, if not months, to create.
Where did you get the inspiration for that piece?
That was something that I had just doodled, and it was actually my wife was like, you know, that would look good as a sculpture. And so I've done a couple different versions, you know, getting larger and larger each time. So I might even, that's probably a couple feet tall. I'll probably do another one that's even taller than that.
Interesting, interesting. Tell me about Art Revolution.
Art Revolution is my foundation that I recently started. We're just getting off the ground, but for me it's pretty important to give back. I've learned a lot over the years of being an artist, working with this very accessible material, something we're all familiar with, but I want to do more than just show my art. I want to inspire, and I also have learned a lot about art in general. You know, I was this lawyer. I wasn't really happy as a lawyer. I've often said the worst day as an artist is still better than the best day as a lawyer. But I wanted to be happier, and I found that creating art made me happier. So, all right, making art for me makes me happy. So then I started doing some research, and I found that kids who are exposed to art in schools actually have better test scores, higher graduation rates for kids who have art in their curriculum. All right, so now art makes you happier, art makes you smarter, so I guess art just makes you better. So if you're exposed to art and you're creating art, it kind of makes you a better person. And I really focused on that and started this foundation where I thought, you know, it's important to put art into schools. So many curriculums are having to cut art. So how can I help? And so the idea behind the foundation is really to find a way to put more art supplies into schools, help support curriculums, and that's our mission at this point.
What do you think it is about art that makes people happy?
I think there's something about that spark of creativity that just, it's almost like snapping two Lego bricks together. There's just a bit of satisfaction there. Mm-hmm. It just feels good. And if that just a little bit of happiness comes to you, you're just going to have a better day.
Yeah. Interesting, you know, that we have had, you know, cutbacks in art programs around the nation. But one of the most popular guys in the world, a fellow by the name of Steve Jobs, I think this is kind of interesting because he sort of melded engineering and art together. And there's a big push right now about, you hear the acronym STEM, you know, and the science and technology, engineering, mathematics and stuff. And there's a big push that we need more than that. What are your thoughts on that? How do we meld the two together?
Well, I think it's important. I think isn't STEAM where they include the word art in that same acronym, and I think it's important that all of that comes together. I think, you know, when you look at the type of art I do, it's not just about creativity. It's also about engineering and mathematics. And a lot of kids write to me and they say, "How can I get your job? I want to be like you. I want to do what you do." And I tell them, math is important, science is important, art is important, but you have to combine all of those things. And so things like STEM are programs that we need to focus on because that's what's going to help our kids.
Yeah. Do you think that's one reason Apple is so successful, is because they make the products look good?
It doesn't hurt them, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, something that's going to catch the eye is going to help. Yeah. Of course, definitely.
And something that's kind of pleasing and easy to use.
Exactly.
And so,
there's a universality to it, right? I mean, the product just... wherever you go, people kind of gravitate towards that product, wherever you are in the world. And that's the same thing I found with Lego. In fact, I was in Africa, and I had some Lego bricks and was showcasing some art, and I met people who had never heard of Lego. They didn't know it as a toy. They didn't know it as a product. But as soon as they started snapping those bricks together, they got it. You know, we didn't have to even talk. They just got, oh, there's joy in putting these bricks together. And it's universal. It's a universal product.
Do kids send you any of their work?
Yeah, I think I'll do book signings, and kids will actually bring their work to show me. It's very special. It's also very surreal to see all these works that these kids have worked so hard on. It's really amazing, and you know, I'm doing my job because I'm encouraging them to create.
What's the other big question that they ask you? I mean, obviously, how do they get your job?
How can I get your job? What should I study in school? And you know, a lot of how can I be like you? How can I do what you do? You know, there's patience is one of the things I mentioned, using your imagination, but practice. I think you know, it's kind of trite to say, but practice, practice, practice. When I started out, I didn't know how to make a curve out of rectangular pieces. But that's one of the critical things you need to learn. How do you take these rectangular bricks and make them into a circle or a sphere?
How do you do that?
One brick at a time.
Do you cut?
I don't. I use just the pieces as they come, standard shapes and sizes, standard colors. Because if someone is inspired and they want to go to a toy store, I want them to buy the very same bricks that I have. I don't have any special colors or shapes or anything. It's the same stuff that's in the toy store.
Interesting. Let me step back just a couple of notches here. You're talking about creativity.
Yeah.
Have we taken creativity out of schools?
Well, look, I think there are some times when it may have been removed too much. But that's kind of my mission, is to get more creativity into schools, at least get more art into schools, and art equals creativity. One of the exhibitions I'm working on actually it's different. It's that I've taken famous works of art and replicated them out of Lego.
Okay.
And it's a way to teach kids about art history. How do you talk to a 5-year-old about art history? It's kind of tough. But what if they saw these art history pieces made out of some toy they're so familiar with? They can kind of relate to it then. And so that's one of the things I've tried to do, and it's worked really well. It's started a dialogue with kids about art history that might not normally be interested in it. You talk to a 5-year-old about the Mona Lisa because it's made out of the same toy they have.
Yeah, that's interesting. Of all the pieces you've done, do you have a favorite?
My favorite piece is the next one. It's got to be the next one. You know, it's hard to pick a favorite because they're like my kids, right? How do you pick a favorite child? You have to, you know, I work on everyone. I put my heart and soul into every sculpture. So when it comes to picking a favorite, it's impossible. I do really believe it's the next one because I get excited about the next thing I'm working on.
What are some of the next things you have?
Oh, well, I'm not telling.
You're not
you
telling?
Got to wait and see. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram if you want a preview. But other than that, yeah, you'll have to wait and see.
Okay. How many pieces will you produce a year?
It depends. You know, a few hundred, maybe probably less than that. Actually, it's tough. I mean, some things take a few days. Some things take weeks. It just depends on where I'm at. And these hands do all the work. I have a great staff, but when it comes to the actual art, these are the hands that are doing all the building.
Okay. And the makeup of your work today, how much of it is commissioned work versus you just for exhibitions?
When I started out, I was doing a lot of commission work. That's how I paid the bills, paid rent. But nowadays, I'm in a great spot where I can really pick and choose the projects I want. And for the most part, I'm doing a lot of just what's inside me and just what I want to do. So that's a lot of fun.
Anybody in your family interested in art?
Well, you know, there's some interest. I think they think, oh, Nathan, what are you doing? You know, my family's been very supportive. They've come to all my openings, but you know, it's just, oh, that's what Nathan does. Yeah.
So no budding artist per se.
Not yet. We'll see. I have a niece who's 5 years old. She's pretty good with the bricks. She's probably the one to watch.
Just overall, what advice would you give to a young artist?
Well, you know, follow your dreams is the key thing, but I think it's more than that. I think it's, you know, don't get discouraged is kind of the message, and really give it your all. So many times in my career, I thought, I could just take a break, I can sleep in, I don't need to work, but I would get up and put those extra hours in, and it's led to some real success.
What a great story.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck on the commercial side and best of luck with your foundation.
Thank you very much.
You can keep up with Nathan at brickartist.com. Also learn more about and support his drive to bring art to the forefront of education at artrevolution.org. And while you're out there flying around the World Wide Web, why not check out some more of our conversations online at wsre.org/conversations. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take great care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Support for this program is provided in part by these corporate sponsors. And by viewers like you.